Hello, everyone, and welcome to another small screen Star Wars. As always, I am Julian Mush. I am joined by Rachel Wilkinson.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 3, Season 1, Chapter 3, The Streets of Mos Espa. Okay, so that's what's on tap today. We're going to be breaking it down, recapping / reviewing, whatever buzzword you want to use to describe whatever we're doing here is. If you're new to the show, I would say, hey, follow us on Twitter at TowerBabbleCast, Facebook.com/TowerBabbleCast as well, or head over to our website, towerbabble.ca, to find everything that we do. This is only a 37-minute episode. It's about as long.
Yeah, it was very short.
Yeah, about as long as the first episode, which was also directed by Robert Rodriguez. This was a Robert Rodriguez special as well, written by Jon Favreau. Here's what the log line says. Boba Fett must deal with two very different threats.
Right.
Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Again, you don't get a lot out of these log lines, but that's all right. Hey, we've been talking about the names of the episodes. This one, really on the nose. What do you think the Streets of Mos Espa means?
I think it's really deep and super meaningful. It has nothing to do with the actual streets and what's happening on them.
You don't think so? Well, yeah, that's because honestly, we spend very little time on the actual streets.
Yeah. But yeah, no, this one's pretty much very straightforward. So
yeah, here's the thing: the title, "The Streets of Mos Espa." If I had heard that before we'd seen the episode, I would have said, "Oh man, how cool! We're gonna get this like." I think I talked about recently on the other podcast the show called Star Trek Lower Decks. Was that on this podcast? I don't remember.
Yeah, you're talking to me about that.
where we have the like it's showing the things happening behind the scenes.
Not
the main stuff. I was like, ooh, we're gonna get like this kind of like gritty, what's actually happening on the ground as Boba Fett's trying to run this kingdom. But that's not at all what we get. And not judging the show for what it is, but I would have preferred that over what we got.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I probably would have assumed like, oh, there's going to be some kerfuffles with like the Trandoshans and Boba and everybody else who's there, and yeah, I would have assumed it was just kind of more of that, but it was not. It was definitely different. So
yeah, it is definitely different. I guess before we get into this, general thoughts on this episode.
I liked the first 20 minutes. Of the episode?
Of the 37? Okay.
I would say I would say I liked the majority of the episode. I didn't really like the last chunk of it. And I mean, we're obviously going to get to it, but I liked a good part of it, and then I didn't like the rest of it. So
yeah,
I just had some
fair.
like minor qualms, like nothing major, but I was just like, there's just a few things that I just didn't particularly love. So not that I hated the episode overall. There's some really some things I really liked about the episode, but there were a lot of things that I was just like not pumped about. So
yeah, no, I feel that. I have some gripes of my own. So let's get into it. Before we do, I'll just remind everyone that we are doing this live. We do this live every Thursday at around between 7 and 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you want to watch, you can tune in live on YouTube, Twitch, and on Twitter as well. In fact, we have someone watching live on Twitch. The Bear saying hello.
Hello.
How are you? All right, so let's get into this. We're going to talk about scene by scene how this all breaks down. So it starts in Jabba's palace in the throne room. We have actually, before we even get there, we have an opening shot, a establishing shot of Jabba's palace, and I call it Jabba's palace for short, just because. If I just called it Boba's palace, it sounds weird for some reason. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that yet. We see a shot of a Bomar monk in stop motion. So were you confused by this opening shot?
No, because you had talked about these weird spider brains before.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, okay. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, those are the things Jules was talking about. But I can't remember what you said about them. So feel free to
elaborate.
Tell me.
Yeah,
not that I wasn't
fine.
Listening last time.
It doesn't sound like you were listening last time.
Okay, I had COVID last time, so
that's a good point. Actually, that's a good point.
I'm fully recovered now. My brain is back to 100%.
Okay, all right. I didn't realize that COVID affected the brain. To be honest,
it's because I was so not when I was locked in my apartment for an entire week. It really hindered my mental capacity of.
Wow. I understand that.
It was a lot.
You had a little cabin fever, so
yeah,
I get
exactly.
That. Okay, so we are in Jabba's palace. This Bomar monk, by the way, their whole deal is they are a group of monks who believe that by separating their brain from their physical body, they become that much closer to enlightenment.
Right,
okay?
right,
And they put their brain instead into a jar attached to a spider droid thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is weird, for sure.
Super weird, yeah.
Not the first time we've seen this. They appeared in the background in Return of the Jedi is weird as well. So keep an eye on that. All right. I don't know if that'll actually play into anything at all.
Yeah, I'm like, do they do anything or do they just kind of roam around?
Well, I don't know what they could do.
Okay. That was kind of what I was curious. Like, are they dangerous or are they just kind of like meditating forever?
It's unclear.
Wandering around in a spider. I don't know.
It's unclear. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and does your brain age on its own, Like if it's just in a jar, Anyway. If your brain is in a jar, no one's around to age it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're in Jabba's palace, and 8D8 is describing how Mos Espa has been divided into 3 territories owned by different crime families.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the Trandoshans, who own the city center, the Aqualish, who are in the workers' district. And by the way, I guess that explains why all those Trandoshans are giving them the stink eye.
Yeah, because they're in their territory. Yeah, it makes sense.
And then we have the Klatooinians at the Starport and Upper Sprawl. By the way, I love the term Upper Sprawl.
Yeah.
It's very descriptive, but it makes perfect sense. That's where most of Episode 1 takes place. So that's interesting. Also interesting that the Aqualish are like a crime family.
As well. I thought that was interesting too, actually.
Yeah. The other thing that they mention here by 8D8 is that he talks about Jabba's death, and he refers to it as the sail barge disaster. Which is, I think, pretty funny, because it's like, I guess no one really knows what happened, or no one really, like, hey, no, Luke, no one's going to talk about the Jedi who came and murdered Boba Fett, presumably, until he came back. And, Leia, the general of the Resistance, or she's probably she's a big political figure now at this time in Star Wars. Oh yeah, choked out Jabba. All this kind of stuff. No one's talking about that. This is just a terrible disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'd been funny if they called it the sail barge accident or something.
Yeah.
So they also mentioned that Bib Fortuna, and it's kind of like what we had talked about before, which is that took over for Jabba, and then, because he wasn't as a powerful a figure, had to rely on these fragile alliances to maintain his power, which in turn actually transferred a lot of power. And they talk about the power vacuum, but it transferred a lot of power to the mayor of Mos Espa,
right? Mm-hmm.
Mokshaiz, right? So I found that this whole breakdown really interesting. It kind of sets up this kind of almost video game like scenario where you have to like go and take back these different territories.
They give you all the information up front of like, okay, this is what's happening now. Like,
yes,
okay.
exactly.
Which I very much appreciated.
Yeah, same. It's like, okay, cool. There's lots of info here. I like a good info dump as much as the next person. So there is an interesting line here, and they're kind of doing this briefing, and Boba's like, okay, so now what? And 8D8's response is, everyone is waiting to see what kind of leader you are.
Right? Yeah.
Which I thought was fascinating, especially coming from a droid.
Yeah.
Right? So that kind of like sets the stage, I think, for this whole episode, right? Where
absolutely.
Boba then has to think about, okay, what kind of leader am I? Because he might not have considered that as much, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
So Fennec asks if she should look into the whole assassination attempt any further. Boba and her kind of come to the same conclusion, that it was the Hutts, which I think everyone watching the show probably came to that conclusion.
Yeah, pretty much.
And they chose not to act quite yet, because he's like, would people know if you were asking? They're like, we have to assume that's the case. I just like the strategizing here. I think it's interesting. So they're gonna basically lay low for now.
Yeah,
that's the plan. We're gonna sit tight and assess from that Don't Look Up movie. So Fennec asks, fine, fair enough, but we do need to make a decision eventually. Fair enough. Then we get interrupted by one of his vassals, one of the people who pays tribute to used to pay tribute to Jabba, then to Bib, now to Boba. There's too many B's between the Jabbas, the Bobas, and the Bibs. There's just too many B's.
It's a weird nitpick, but
yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of B's in there. So this vassal come in. Lortha Peel is their name. Played by Stephen Root. I don't know if you're familiar with Stephen Root.
Okay, I should have just looked it up, but he plays like, doesn't he play like a dad or something?
He's known for Office Space. He's known
Office
for
Space. That's what it is. I was like, I feel like I see him as like a nerdy guy with glasses and like kind of meek.
Then that's exactly what you picked. You nailed it.
It was Office Space then, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
He's also known for King of the Hill and Barry. He's a longtime character actor.
Yeah, for
I just
sure.
Really like these
I feel like he's often like in movies, but as a supporting character or a background character, like kind of, you know what I mean? Like a very small role, but he's in kind of like those Adam Sandler movies that always have the same few dudes in them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's apparently voice of a character in the new Blade Runner TV series, animated series, which I haven't seen yet, but apparently he's in that as well. So anyway, loving these character actor casting choices here. Another great one. So anyway, this guy is complaining that there's this new street gang in town, and that the streets have turned to chaos ever since Boba took over, right? And by the way, I love his use of the "I'm insulted on your behalf."
Yeah.
as like yeah.
I love too because Boba's like, have they? Like he's just
like if you say so, like really, okay.
Yeah, he's like, all right.
It's pretty out of touch.
Blaming me, I don't know. It seems like just you have a problem, but
well, okay. I mean, yeah, I mean that is kind of what it is, and he's kind of calling him out on that a little bit. But I think he's not completely wrong either. He says no one respects you.
Right? Yeah,
that's just the first thing he says.
Yeah.
Which again, a lot of this like I'm assaulted on your behalf is really him talking from his perspective. Like, he's like, absolutely. I don't respect you, therefore others don't respect you. Yada yada yada.
Which like a very ballsy thing to say to a new crime boss that you don't really know anything about, to be like, no one respects you.
Well, this is what Fennec was saying before. Is like, hey, that type of insolent, language would,
absolutely.
Jabba would feed you to his menagerie, right?
Yeah,
that's the line.
Exactly.
And like, so people are seeing some of these moves that Boba's making in Jabba's place, and it's soft, quote unquote. It looks soft,
right? Yeah,
comparatively speaking, right? So that's just not quite as brutal. So people are like, oh, well, then he must be a pushover.
Yeah, exactly. He's nothing to worry about. Yeah.
By the way, I love this idea that this guy, Lortha Peel, he's a watermonger. He's basically a sales guy, right? He's a middleman. He's a middleman who buys the water from the moisture farmers, and he sells it to the regular ass people. That's his job. So his job really doesn't need to exist, but no. And it's worse that he's like jacking up the rates. We'll get to that later.
Inflating it horribly.
Well, hey, it's organized crime. This is what happens.
That's why they use the word monger. Isn't that usually why that's used, or no? I always feel like that, because isn't there a term like warmonger too? And isn't that kind of like what's the word? Like a negative connotation?
Yes,
to it?
It's denoting a dealer or trader in a specific commodity. So it's not necessary. If you're a warmonger, you're dealing in war, which is that's why the negative connotation comes in. This is just a person selling water.
Okay, fair enough.
Supposedly. Right? So he's saying like, hey, by the way, I love the way he says these. He calls them youths. Yeah, but he says them in such a funny, in the way that people make fun of the way that people say youths.
Oh yeah, it's like a boomer way of saying it.
Yeah,
Does
he
he call
sounds
it like insolent too, or no?
Insolent youths.
Yeah,
he says it like the way from New Girl says youths, basically. Schmidt.
Oh, Schmidt, yes.
Youths.
Yeah,
that's how he's saying it. So I thought I love that. I don't know if that's an intentional callback. I don't think it is. But he also says that this gang they're made up of half man, half machine, right? Modifying their bodies with droid parts to become even more deadly. So
When he said that, I was picturing something like way cooler, way worse.
I think everyone was.
Yeah, and then I mean we were gonna get to it, right? But yeah, you can't just say that to make them way deadlier, and then it's like they show them. I'm like, okay,
and
like,
it's Flashdance.
yeah,
I mean, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
we'll get to
okay,
that.
yeah.
Obviously, half man, half machine. Reference to Obi-Wan talking about Vader. He's more machine than man.
Right. Which is what I think of in Star Wars when someone's half man, half machine.
Right. Exactly.
Like,
same.
I think Grievous, and I think
well,
other
Grievous
people
is
who
kind
have
of like
been,
the
he's not a
furthest
man,
extent. He's
yeah,
more machine.
he's more droid
he is
than anything.
truly more machine than man.
Yeah. Or even in Clone Wars when they, what's his name? General, the spider one.
Oh.
When they blow him up and then he comes back
remember.
and he's half robot after.
Yes.
Or he's half droid after. Like, that's kind of what I expect to see when I
generally
hear...
we think of bad guys and scary bad guys.
Yeah. But
anyway, we'll get to that. Hold your your poison for later. Your acid.
Holding it.
All right. So another moment I really liked here, and he's like, "Oh, you're a water dealer. I grew up around water," says Boba in this like really cute way where he's like excited to tell people about where he grew up. I thought that was a really odd choice to include. Like, why even? Like, yeah. And then it goes like, oh, did you know that Tatooine was covered in water? And like, we just talked about that last episode. Yes, of course we know that. Now,
yeah.
You know? But I grew up surrounded by water. Like, oh, okay. What's your point, Boba? What are you getting at here?
It's just like two old dads talking.
Well, no. And worse, because he looks at Fennec to be like, right? You know, I grew up around water, and she's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Just reminding us.
But the deal is, he's saying, if you get rid of this gang, I'll double my tribute to you, whatever his cut that he gives. It's a pretty good deal, by the way. You know, you're offering a lot. So this person, I think Boba's smart enough to realize when someone is trying to play him, you know?
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I think there's a little bit of knowing there. Although that being said, when he does arrive in Mos Espa, so the next scene they arrive in Mos Espa, he's got he's got his guards with him. He's got Fennec with him. He's got his full armor on. He just finds this gang. Not hard to find. They've got bright colored spears. They're like, they admit to stealing the water, but only because they were being overcharged. Right. And I think the exact line is a week's worth of water for a month's wages.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So Boba's like, is that so? So he starts like putting the pieces together pretty quickly, right?
Right.
Although the line where, where'd you get that water? At the very beginning, I thought was also pretty funny.
Yeah. He's like, we stole it. Just doesn't care.
Oh, he's like, oh, well, I didn't I expected this to go much differently.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's no wages either, right? There's no work. That you live in by the way, this weird episode's very odd with its choice of dialogue. Where he says, you live in the workers' district. You should be working. What the hell does that mean? You know, like, oh, I live in that's like saying, oh, you live in Little Italy? Then you must be Italian.
I guess I kind of thought of it more as like the industrial area, like the workers' district is like where more of the like bigger like factories or the bigger whatevers are, and it's like, okay, that's where most of the work is because it's, you know, kind of like the financial district, right? Is where all the
right. But just because you live in the financial district doesn't mean you work in finance.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know, so
because you're standing there doesn't mean
exactly. So I thought that was a little odd. Also, which is, and it's like, this feels like from an internal logic standpoint, this kind of just came to me. But you're telling me that you just spent a whole scene describing how the workers' district is owned by the Aqualish, and instead of having Aqualish come to Boba and like make this deal on the behalf of one of these low-level water dealers, right? The water dealer himself comes right to Boba. It's weird. And we don't see any Aqualish, and you call out that they're in the workers' district. So it's like, it just seems odd to me. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't pick that up at all.
So Boba offers to take them on. It's like, you guys can work for me then. And then the water monitor literally comes out of nowhere and says that they owe him 1,300 credits. Boba offers to give him 500 instead. and tells him to lower his prices. And then if he doesn't like it, he can move to Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
So I guess the question I have, and I don't know, maybe I'm dumb, but Jabba he makes the trip over to Mos Eisley in episode 4 in A New Hope to give the gears to Han for not for dumping his cargo, and he owes him a bunch of money, right? That's that previously deleted scene that they added back in the updated version where he says, Jabba, you're a wonderful human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, which is weird because he's obviously not a human being, which is odd. But the point is, he comes all the way to Mos Eisley for that, right?
Right.
I always just assumed, and everything takes place in Mos Eisley around there. I always just assumed that that was a part of his territory. It seemed like it was.
Yeah.
But now it's only Mos Espa and the surrounding areas. What I'm saying is it's confusing to me, and it doesn't need to be like this. The line, if you don't like it, move to Mos Eisley, just feels like, oh, look, we mentioned Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
Even though we go to Mos Eisley later in this episode. So I don't.
I don't know. Honestly, I'm not too sure where that line comes from or what they're referring to, because it's almost like Fennec is like, yeah, go there.
Yeah,
and
get him.
I don't get the joke.
Yeah, I don't either. Let's unpack this even further, because what does that mean? Like, oh, that's not a part of my territory, therefore you can set your prices whatever you want them to be.
Or is it still part of his territory,
or
and it's just the same shit? Or
it's just too far away for him to care.
Maybe.
Or it's like, oh, well, you don't like it, move to a small town, where you can set your own little prices or whatever.
Maybe at this point, Mos Eisley is controlled by somebody else who is worse or more powerful. Like, I don't know, maybe the Pikes have it right now.
Yeah, but he doesn't know that. No. Not yet, anyway. So it's like,
yeah, that's true. Maybe he does. I don't know. Maybe
well, he does know that he does know the Pikes do business in Mos Eisley. We know that because of what happens later in the episode.
Right. So maybe that's what he's referring to. But yeah, no, it is true. This whole scene is just kind of a little.
It's odd. The whole scene is odd.
Yeah, I get what they're like doing. Like, they're trying to establish him as more of a
he wants to
an
lead
equalizer,
with respect.
A balancer. Yeah, like he's not. This person came to him with a problem. This watermonger, and he's like, all right, yeah, okay, cool. You're telling me someone stole from you. I'll go write it because you're saying things are out of hand with these youths. Yeah. So he goes and he talks to the youths. And they're like, no, actually, this guy's a piece of shit.
He's the one who's out of hand.
He's overcharging for water, so that's why we stole it. And so, Bob was like, all right, split the difference. I'll make both of these people kind of relatively happy and kind of fix the situation as a whole instead of like taking a side and just murdering people.
A little, it's like he basically forces a deal, right?
Yeah, like a little bit more.
He'll pay $500.
Yeah,
we'll
compromise.
Call it even.
Yeah,
right. And I'll take these people on his work, and he's upset that he's not punishing them or whatever. Which some people do get upset about that kind of thing, but whatever.
Where it's like, here, you guys can work now and stop stealing shit, and you lower your prices and stop being awful. So
yeah, exactly. And I feel like he's gonna come back later and like totally be a little snitch or something.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, he tells them to gather up their gack.
Yeah,
I read that. I had to put on the subtitles because I was like, "What did you just say to me?"
I'm assuming it means shit, but
it's actually a slang term for cocaine.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
In Star Wars specifically,
I don't know. They don't have cocaine in Star Wars.
Yeah,
but if you look it up, a gack is cocaine first, or two, a sticky or messy substance.
Well, yeah, but that's in our world.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I've never heard it used in Star Wars either.
Yeah, they make up stuff all the time. I think it's just obviously one of their slang.
You and your bunch of
I just make crap dummies. Or shit or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
yeah. I get that. Listen, I get it. I kind of picked up what they're putting down, but it's like we don't need to invent new words for everything.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's a weird one. So they jump on their weird speeder bikes and follow Boba back to the palace. Back there, it's a cut to dusk. I guess I'm not sure if it's first thing in the morning or what's going on there, or just before dawn because it was nighttime before. It's unclear. But we see a nod to, again, I guess I'm not sure which. It must be Return of the Jedi, where you have this little frog thing like eating a bug. we get that again, but this is kind of like a triple layered one. It's like a bug eating another bug, and then this frog thing, which is called a wart, W-O-R-T.
Okay.
Eats it and gives it the little burp. So,
okay, I missed this
cute.
I missed all of that.
Well, it's like a transitionary scene. It's just one of those things that Star Wars does where they show like a
little cute
creature.
little thing skittering around. Yeah, I completely missed that both times I watched this episode.
Oh, that's weird. Anyway, so Boba's in his back to tank and dreaming about Kamino. We get kind of a longer shot. We've seen this shot before, this footage before in his dream sequence, his vision quest last week. But this is longer and it's kind of more clear what's going on. Last time it looked like he was excited, Boba was excited that Slave One was returning to Kamino, but this time it looks more like Slave One is leaving Kamino.
Right,
he's watching his father leave. So that's interesting. What did you make of that of this kind of brief flashback?
Yeah, I mean, because I feel like they've been kind of showing us the same thing every time they show us Kamino the last few times. Like at least relatively the same thing. It's always about like Boba young watching, his dad either leave or come back or be in his ship, right? So yeah, I'm curious why. Like they keep What's bringing up. Yeah, like I'm kind of curious why we keep seeing the same sort of scene and same setting. If they're going to come back to it and kind of develop it a little bit more, or
I don't know how much you can because they're using another child actor to fill in. It's not Daniel Logan, obviously. It's not an original shot, I don't think. So we get this reflection, and then it's overlaid with Boba's face. It's his like his older face, and obviously there's a lot of subtext you could read into this. It could be that obviously his dad looks exactly like him, right?
Well, of course,
he's literally a clone. So there's a little bit of that going on with the reflection. That's the second time they've done that. Last time in the helmet. And then the other kind of piece is this idea of like, I guess maybe abandonment. He feels maybe abandoned by his father. His head was cut off. It's not his fault he was abandoned necessarily, but he wasn't always around necessarily. I mean, he mentioned maybe the reason for that line earlier is like, well, I grew up surrounded by Wata, is because of this. It makes sense because of the scene.
Yeah, that's fair.
It is. I think there's more to it than that, other than just, hey, remember he grew up on Kamino, right? I feel like there has to be more to it than that.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. Like, there's got to be a reason why they keep showing us this, but I guess we'll see. But,
right.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it ultimately comes back to this legacy of it with his father.
Of course.
There's going to be more. We haven't heard Jango's name said, but I wouldn't be surprised if we hear it at some point in this series. Okay, so. There then is another larger flashback. He's gone to Dream Level 2, where Boba is riding a bantha, and he's in his new black robes. I guess this is at some point after the end of the last flashback that we left last week on, and he's, I guess, been given some role or responsibility. There's some really nice shots of him crossing the Dune Sea, very pretty. Especially the banthas look very cool. And he's arriving in Mos Eisley, like we said before. Always fun to see Mos Eisley. We get to see here that those spikes with the helmets of the stormtroopers are being set up here that we saw from The Mandalorian. We also see in that brief sequence, we also see Peli Motto and Amy Sedaris' character. In the background
with her little droids trailing behind her.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a fun little thing. And then Boba meets up with the Pike leader. Well, first of all, he asks some Jawas where they're doing business, but he ends up meeting with a Pike leader about the protection arrangement that they kind of the deal he offered the surviving Pikes from the train incident, right?
Right.
And apparently, the deal is the Pikes are fine with paying protection money. It's part of doing business, right? But they're not okay with paying protection money to more than one party.
Yeah.
Which, fair enough.
Oh yeah, right? For sure. He's like, we're not going to get squeezed by like multiple different people here. We'll pay one of you, so figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which it's like, so that's I like this. There's a cool power dynamic with him kind of sitting there with his like fancy cup and all this kind of stuff.
His fancy cup.
I like that. And basically they say that that they already are paying another group, and it's the Nikto biker gang.
Right.
We saw in the last 2 episodes, and they're called the Kinton Striders. Okay. And they're, like I said, they're already collecting protection money from them. Boba's like, well, don't worry about that. We'll take care of it. They're the Tuscans way outnumber them. It's not a problem. We'll take care of it. And of course, this Pike is like, yeah, no problem. We look forward to doing business with you. Great. You let us know. We'll be here, right? Meanwhile, I think it's clear that they set them up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was just going to say, like, I don't think... Well, okay, I have 2 theories about this, and it's either the Pikes paid that biker gang to go mess up the Tuscans, or the Pikes messed up the Tuscans and made it look like the biker gang did it, because he's just like, fuck it, they can just kill each other, and then I don't have to pay anybody.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. I didn't consider that. I kind of just assumed, because the way that it's set up is Boba says, you got my message. So they knew that Boba was coming, so they knew that he'd be away from the camp.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So they were like, okay, well, while he's here, you go in, fuck up these Tuscans, right? And we'll keep the dangerous one, out of action.
Right, out of the action, yeah. But that's what I mean. And then I think they know that Boba's going to be pissed about it, and then maybe go obviously mess up, because he already... killed? I don't know if he killed those guys in that bar.
No, he didn't. He just beat them up.
He just beat them up and took their shit. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like with that Pike, the Pikes are so smart. Like, they don't mess with, and
they just like, if they need to do something to make business happen, they'll just do that.
If they're going to be able to do,
regardless of how dangerous or dirty or
absolutely
evil it is.
And if it saves the money from having to pay anybody, then they'll do that too.
Yeah.
So
and they'll play people against each other. And
absolutely.
They really hold all the cards most of the time, right? So.
Yeah. So no, my whole thing, the first time I watched it, I was just like, I didn't pick up on that. But then the second time I watched it through, I was like, I have a feeling there's more to it. There's more to this than them just, happening to say like, oh, we already paid someone, so I don't know, you figure it out. It's like, nah.
What do you mean? Oh yeah. Well, fair.
Yeah.
So Boba then returns to the Tuscan camp, only to find it burning and destroyed. Many Tuscans are dead, including the chieftain. I
was trying to see like if all of them were or not, and I couldn't
tell
really
either.
Figure it out. I couldn't tell. It's very difficult to tell.
I think that warrior one is still alive.
That's what I was thinking. I was specifically trying to find him, and I couldn't really see anyone that looked exactly like with his like longer kind of like tattered
I also think
black.
it's a woman.
Is it a woman? You think?
Well, it's played by a woman, so it's unclear to me.
Okay, interesting. I mean, it's like I said, it's very hard to tell anything about Tuscans, the way that they dress them, right?
Yeah.
So that's even cooler, actually, if that's how they're.
You say so.
Just kidding.
Just kidding.
Q and don't say that out loud. That it's a female, because
I'm just kidding.
The Star Wars guys on Twitter are going to get mad. So
yes, there's a lot. Well. The Star Wars people on Twitter are already mad. I don't have to say anything to make them mad. They're already upset, especially with this episode.
Yeah. Oh, are they? I haven't watched.
Yeah, they're upset because people are wearing zippers. There's like, it's quite funny, actually.
They're upset about. Okay.
They're like,
we'll talk about that at the end. I don't know how you can be mad about zippers. There's plenty of other things to be upset about in this episode, but
they're upset about those things too.
So
anyway, so the camp is destroyed. I found this to be a little anticlimactic and not that satisfying. Like, we spent all this time with these Tuscans, and they come back and they're dead, but it doesn't feel as important as it should feel. Like, I feel like the show should make me feel more upset about this, but I'm not that upset about it.
I was upset. Okay, maybe you're just heartless, because I was upset. I was bummed about it. Yeah, I don't know, just the way, he comes back to it, and the graffiti, and everyone's just kind of strewn about, and everything's torn down, and then he has to kind of properly burn the bodies, because that's what he learned. That's how they obviously dispose of their dead.
Yes, he wraps them and
burns them, and burns them with their weapons and everything. So I don't know. For me, it kind of bummed me out, and I was like, oh man, like,
well, yeah, it's a bummer. I just don't feel like the the scene was played to as much as dramatically as I feel like it could have been.
That's fair, yeah.
And I think, by the way, I think the choral arrangement, the music, is odd. It just feels a little out of place for me.
Okay.
So I didn't love the execution of this scene as much as I feel like I'd like to have, because Rachel, you know this. I will cry at the drop of a hat in a movie, right? Like, it's just listen. If it doesn't take much, but I didn't nothing. I felt very little, and it's not that I don't like the characters. I do. It's just like, but it's also like you said. It's like it's hard to tell who is dead. The only one that they really called out was the chieftain character, who we didn't really know that well anyway. Like, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, they easily could have made it a lot worse, but maybe, he's going to maybe hopefully meet up with some of them that survived.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, though. Like, if they are all dead, they very much should have made it more impactful and more known that, like, hey, like, they're all gone. The warrior's gone. The leader's gone. The kid is gone. Everyone that he had kind of bonded with.
Right. Now he can go after his armor.
Yeah.
Or something. He burns that last stick, that last piece of wood. Mm-hmm. What did you make of that?
I wasn't too sure. If that was like his original, like, kind of training stick that he was trained with.
It was too small. I think it was a piece of the tree that he took back, that he brought back with him.
Yeah, but I kind of felt dumb, because I'm like, am I supposed to know what that piece is?
That's the thing. Again, I think the scene is unnecessarily confusing. You're wanting to know who is dead. Yeah. You see him burning things. You're not sure why or what they are, what their significance is. It's unnecessarily confusing, and it's unfortunate.
I may have to go back and watch, maybe if I go back and watch the kind of training stuff that he does and more of the previous episodes of him with the Tuscans, maybe that I will notice that again. But
I
don't know if that's supposed to be like the kids.
Yeah, it was another thing. It's like, maybe it's a kids. I don't know. It could be literally anything, and that's why it's annoying, because we don't know. Yeah. So I think that's a knock against it.
So it's not just me that didn't know.
No, exactly.
Good. That makes me feel better then. So
misery loves company. So back at Jabba's palace, Boba is rudely awoken by Black Chrysanthemum.
Amazing. This
really
scene
cool.
was incredible. This scene brought back the episode for me, kicked it up an extra.
It's really the only okay. So here's the thing. I did like this scene mostly. It is a little odd. There's some of the choices here. Okay. I feel like this again, really cool to see a Wookiee in action against people.
Yeah, especially one that's has no that isn't a good guy. We see Chewbacca, but
no
Chewbacca's not.
Back.
Yeah, Chewbacca's not necessarily trying to kill people all the time, but Chrysanthemum is not.
Right. Well, so here's the thing. That's what I mean. So you're right in the sense that it is cool to see that, but I don't think we're actually seeing that here, because he picks him up out of that back tank. He could just snap his neck right there. He doesn't.
That's fair.
He throws him around.
Yeah, that's fair.
He does this weird bear hug maneuver, right? Which, you
hear some bones cracking.
And... You hear some bones cracking and stuff, and sure, it looks painful, and it looks like he's about to pass out or whatever, but it's like... And the most violent stuff is when he is thrown or hit, and Boba goes flying across the room.
There's a few when he punches him with his his cool electro brass
his
knuckles.
Brass knuckles with electricity on them.
Because he messes up Chewbacca with those in one of the comics. He almost comes very close to killing Chewbacca.
Are these his signature weapons?
One of them, he does have them all the time. So it is one of his things, because there's I think it's is it Vader Down or something? It's one of the crossovers between Dr. Aphra and Vader, and the new whatever. It's a crossover. A couple of the different comics kind of come together, and he almost becomes very close to killing Chewbacca with. Beating the shit out of him, but
that's
then it's
cool,
the tide's turn. But...
Then it's crazy that it didn't smash. It's every punch I feel should have done more damage. That's just how I feel about
fair.
it.
Yeah.
So
I chalked it up to maybe he just came out of the bacta tank and he's still got some.
He's still a little extra juice in him.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
Again, it's fine. I think it is super cool. Why doesn't he have a gun? Why doesn't he have a blaster? How do you get in without one?
Oh,
and then, why wouldn't you bring one with you? Right?
Because he doesn't need one.
These are odd. See, this is what I mean. It's just slightly odd choices. It didn't need to go this way.
Yeah.
But yet it opens itself up for these these questions, because it is super cool, but ultimately, like, some of it's a little underwhelming, I think, because of that, especially the way it ends, I think.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just interesting because, then they, the kids come in and
The kids.
like, she just, I don't have names
She's
for
got
any of them.
she's got a little
Like a
switchblade.
tiny little dagger, and then the other one's got like a stupid mace. But I mean, like, to give them credit, Chrysanthemum does mess them up. Like, it's like they're not really doing much. They're distracting him enough that he can't like really kill Boba Fett. He is outnumbered, so he's kind of is fighting them off fairly easily. Just when he backhands Boba into the tank, it's like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, it's like, again, like I said, there's lots of cool stuff in here. I just think that
mhm.
there's some odd choices. I do love that he goes to try to put on his gauntlet, but he can't get those on in time. So he grabs the gaffy stick.
Yeah.
And like he like does some pretty good damage with that.
Yeah,
So
stabs him a few times.
That's pretty cool. Like, you don't see that very often, where Wookiees get stabbed in the leg, or you even get to see a gaffy stick stab anyone. So that's cool. I'll give you that 100%. I did like that scene. It kind of makes the episode. I don't know what it is. Some parts of this show just feel really cheap. This part of this episode has a little bit of that. It doesn't feel like as gritty or as pretty, I guess, well put together, well staged or blocked as other things I've seen. And when you look at the concept art in the end of the episode during the credits, it just looks so much cooler in art form than it did in the actual episode itself, which isn't always the case to me.
I don't know. I do feel like a lot of it is, for me at least, is just these, I don't know what you call them, these the youths or whatever.
The youths.
I just feel like they kind of ruined a lot of it for me. Like, it pulled me out a little bit when they show up. I'm like, I get it. They needed to show up to help Boba Fett, but I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of them so far. So
what did you think of when Black Chrysanthemum tackled the Gamorrean guard?
Tackles
down
the Gamorreans? I guess
so cool.
Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, I thought you were gonna be upset about it. Like, I liked it.
Cool.
Like, that made sense for me as a character, as a choice.
He's making an escape. It's kind of a brutal move. I liked it. He really messes up that one Gamorrean.
Oh, he bit him.
Yeah, that's cool.
I like that too, because it's like he fights dirty. He's not like a fair, honorable
he's not
fighter.
A man of honor.
No, absolutely not. Like, he does not care. He'll rip your throat out.
I said that they got absolutely demolished.
Yeah,
how I wrote it in my notes.
Yeah, which is very, like, and that makes sense. He's kind of outnumbered at this point, and he's got to get out of there. But yeah, just tackling them down the stairs, so funny. The little squeals of them fighting is also great.
Yes, it's rare to see a fight sequence that has like so many ups and so many like highs and so many lows. I feel like this episode is full of that. Like, there's some pretty cool highs and some pretty low lows. This is mostly high, but again, even as a microcosm, some weird lows in here, odd questions around it. Anything else you want to mention about that?
No, not about the whole fight scene or anything, because I mean, then we get into obviously where he ends up. So.
Yeah, so he gets dropped into the Rancor pit.
Yes, yeah,
and I think that's kind of cool. It's like, it makes sense. That's where you'd keep a Wookiee. If you
I definitely saw that coming as soon as they were down there. I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna drop him in the pit. So
right. It's always so funny how everyone's always standing in the perfect spot.
I know. You think they would make that look bigger because it looks like such a small little square that you need them to be standing on. It's like, it should be a way bigger platform that drops.
I do like that he like holds on with one hand.
Oh,
though.
yeah.
I do think that's cool. And I think it would have been really cool if he grabbed one of those punks and brought him down and like murdered him with them.
I mean,
like, that would have like really made him a really scary character, I think.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And No, you're completely right. I would have been totally fine to see one of them die. So,
yeah. Cold. Okay, so the next morning, Boba and Fennec are eating some like massive spread.
So much food for two people.
It's huge, right? And Fennec thinks he should enjoy it more. And I agree. Like, the food looks pretty good, even though it's like it's supposed to look like weird alien food. Boba says he feels like he needs to respond after the attempt on his life. This is now the second one.
We got a question in the chat here.
Oh, do we? Okay.
Panda Express is asking, do you think that Gamorrean guard could actually fit in Boba's back tank?
First of all, love the name Panda Express. That's super funny.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not. They just need some minor adjustments to get him to fit in there.
They're thick. Those boys are thick.
Yes, they are. Yeah, with a C.
Yeah, all the C's.
Yeah. Multiple C's. Yeah. Like thick with like 3 C's.
With 3 C's. 3 C's thick. Yeah.
Yeah. Great question. That's the kind of discourse we're looking for here.
Yeah.
So yeah, the next morning they're eating this big breakfast, and Boba feels like he needs to respond after this second attempt on his life. Busy guy, Boba, these days. So he's like, man, everyone's waiting to see how I'm going to respond. Everyone, like, quote unquote, everyone's watching.
Right.
I think he's finally starting to realize that it's like there is some pageantry around being a crime boss. Like you can't just solve problems and just like, oh, okay, well, it's done.
No, you can't just let people
show stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. You can't just let people attack you now twice and do nothing about it.
Exactly.
It's because it's going to make you look weak. It's going to make you look like you can't handle yourself. So yeah, he's definitely feeling like, okay, this time, like, we got to do something. We can't just sit here anymore.
Right.
And let shit slide anymore.
But like, here's the thing. And I think they kind of address it in an odd way, again, in a moment here. But if the first attempt on his life wasn't from the mayor, it was actually from, I don't know if we even know the answer. We believe that the first attempt on his life was from the Hutts.
The Hutts,
right?
Yeah.
But, and then we have this second attempt. The 2 attempts on his life have both been from the Hutts. Right? Mm-hmm. And the Hutts apologize for sending Black Chrysanthemum. They don't apologize for sending the other one.
No.
And they call the mayor spineless.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
So I'm kind of flip-flopping here. I think that the first attempt on his life was by the mayor.
Yeah.
Made to look like it was the Hutts.
Yeah, there's so many weird things about that, right? Because I can see it from it being both ways, because what is that? The first assassins, what were they called? The Knight something? Or the
Swift Knights. I don't know. Yeah.
So he was like, oh, it was the mayor. And then they go to the mayor kills him immediately, right? So
right.
It's like, okay, was it the Hutts telling him to say it was the mayor? Or was he actually the mayor? But I can absolutely seeing it be that mayor, because he's shitty. And
also that guy reveals that it's the mayor right before he thinks he's going to die. Why would he lie
it's
there?
True. It's so true. So it's definitely, I would assume that as well. And that's probably why the Hutts are like, he's spineless. Like, he can't even admit and back his own failed
like his own
attempts.
Assassination attempt. Exactly.
Yeah. Like any other crime boss or any other person of significance to be like, yeah, that was me.
Right. And so I think the Hutts also feel played, right?
Yeah.
By the mayor, and they're saying, oh, well, they pit the Hutts. The mayor pit the Hutts against Boba, when really,
right?
It was it's the Pikes, who are the power players here. So
absolutely, yeah.
It's just fascinating. I think that's a fun kind of game that's going on there. So anyway, the Hutts arrive, and they come to quote unquote apologize for sending the Wookiee to kill them. By the way, I love their apologies are kind of these like backhanded apologies.
Yeah, they just don't care.
It's like, sorry that we tried to kill you, but really they're sorry it didn't work. Like, that's really. You know what I mean? They decide to bring a Rancor as a gift.
Amazing. That was super cool.
Yeah, super cool. And were you shocked to see Danny Trejo?
Yes. Pumped about it. I'm like, what the fuck? He's in everything. I love Danny Trejo, though. He's
in
so
everything that Rodriguez does.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's not everything, but he's in a lot of his work.
I mean, I loved it. It fit like the character. I think just fits him. I think it worked really well. Like I enjoyed. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Well, it's like okay, Danny Trejo is the Rancor trainer. Okay,
love it.
Sure, that works for me.
Yeah, it works for me too. Like, loved it.
So they brought this Rancor as a gift, and they're like, hey, listen, turns out that we were all we feel dumb. We're gonna leave Tatooine. Right. Boba says like, hey, listen. You leave and don't come back, right? And they're like, no, don't worry, we're already going to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And they say that he should know, like, we'll leave, but you should know that this region, this territory has already been promised to another syndicate.
Yeah.
Right.
It's basically like, we're leaving, but you should too.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And their argument is that war is bad for business. Right.
Yeah. I think the Hutts are just too lazy.
Well, I mean, it's like true though. War is bad for business. It causes chaos. Things are destroyed. Your people are killed,
and it's just not worth it too. Like they're
like, not worth it.
They're like, take Tatooine. Like, we don't care. Take this rock.
I think they call it a worthless rock.
Worthless rock. Yeah, they're probably just looking around, being like, we don't need it. It doesn't matter. We're gonna go back to Nal Hutta and do our thing there, where we have control of everything. They're like, we don't need war with the Pikes.
Yeah. So Boba offers to return Black Chrysanthemum. In exchange, he says the Hutts have to agree to give up any claim to Tatooine.
Mm-hmm.
What I like here is that the Hutts don't agree to this. They just say, no, they just say, we are leaving. We think you should do the same.
Yeah. The other thing that they say, though, is where they tell Boba to sell Chrysanthemum back to the gladiators.
Yes.
That's going to piss him off. Because, there's another whole part about in the Afro comics, whatever, spoiler alert, if you want to read them, haven't read them.
Spoiler for the Afro comics.
So at one point, they run into the gladiator trainers that basically took Chrysanthemum and trained him, quote unquote, trained him, but forced him
to be a gladiator. Yeah.
And it murders them because he's pissed about it. He's not happy about being forced into being a slave and being a gladiator. He's not okay with that. He's not okay with these gladiator trainers and the idea of the Hutts just being like, oh, sell him back.
They don't even care. They're like, yeah, just like, who cares? Sell him back to the gladiators. No. Bye.
Yeah. Chrysanthemum's not like someone you can be like, he's not one to be okay with being sold. Like, he's like, no, I get hired to do things. I'm not, I don't get sold.
So. Well, yeah, because he was probably a slave at one point when the Wookiees were enslaved. So he's probably not a big fan of that whole process.
Oh, no, absolutely not. He's like, excuse you? You're going to tell him to sell me? Like, I hope that he comes back and,
he may come back.
I hope so.
There's some interesting things here where, when Boba says, release him and they let him go and he says, don't worry, it's just business. Take it from an ex-bounty hunter. Don't work for scug holes. It's not worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
And now a lot of people take that to be oh, it's weird that he would say that because, the in canon, they've worked together before. But it sounds like he doesn't know that. But I think you could read that line much more pointedly that he does know who he is. He
does.
Yeah. He's kind of using the bounty hunter line that people have been using against him. In the same way.
Sure. To me, it's I think part of the reason why he lets him go is because he knows him and because they have worked together in the past. That's why Boba Fett's I get it. It's fine. It's just business. Kill him. Yeah, it's just okay, either I let him go or I kill him. He's like, I'm not going to kill him. It's not personal. It was business. He was hired. He's like, I have no hard feelings about it. So to me, if anything, it just solidifies the fact that, I think they already know each other, and Boba's like, all right, it's cool, man. Just but pick better people to work for.
The
next
line
time.
For don't work for scug holes.
Yeah.
As an ex-bounty hunter. I mean, he's talking about don't work for the Hutts, which is of course something he did for a long time.
Yeah.
The fuck they both have done.
Well, hey, maybe it's more of maybe he'll come back and work for Boba now instead.
Right, maybe. I mean, I think the idea is that he's saying it's not worth it because last time he worked for a Hutt, he got killed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And there was no one there to look for him. No one came to, Hutts don't give a shit. So, So anyways, Boba's not willing to accept what the Hutts tell him at face value. And they say, they're going to go meet with the mayor to kind of get to the bottom of this.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do that, we have this weird long scene in the Rancor pit.
Loved it.
It's so long. It's so crazy to me.
I didn't care. I absolutely love this scene.
Boba meets with the Rancor trainer, Danny Trejo, about his new gift. And he's just this Rancor just kind of sitting there, not really moving. And he asks, why is he not moving? He's like, apparently he's depressed.
I love that when they said the Rancor was depressed.
Rancors are emotionally complex creatures, apparently.
Even the Rancor's getting character development. I love it.
After Moochie, it all fits in, right?
Yeah.
They're quite peaceful and less threatened, is what he says. This specific one, which we don't have a name for yet, I don't think.
No, at one point Boba's cooing, talking to him. He's like, "What are we gonna call you?"
Yeah, I know, it's so weird. His little baby voice. So he's like, It's a calf, so it's like a baby, and it's bred from champions for fighting.
Right.
And now that like they've arrived at the pit, he says like, okay, we can begin its training. So I think that's interesting. It's huge for a baby. It feels like it's bigger than Mcquarrie was, but maybe the females are smaller.
Maybe. Yeah, he said. What did they call it specifically? Sorry,
a calf.
Yeah. Which is like maybe not super baby. Like maybe Mcquarrie was more baby than this one is. But maybe it's
hard
know.
to. Yeah, it's hard. To,
yeah, it's hard to know.
Tell. Yeah. It's wearing blinders because apparently it imprints on the first human it sees.
Like a duck.
Excuse me?
I said like a duckling.
How? You want to go explain that further?
Ducklings do the same thing. They imprint on like the first. There's always that like running thing about if you hatch duck eggs, they'll imprint on you and then they'll follow you around because they think you're its mom.
Oh, that's cute.
That's like the whole thing about that movie with the girl with the geese. And she'd like fly away or home or something. Okay, whatever. It was a movie from the 90s. Look it up. Ducks imprint on people too.
Okay, so rancors are like ducks. And this one, so here's the thing. When Danny Trejo tells him to stand right here, right? Mm-hmm. And then goes to remove the blinders. Were you like, oh man, maybe he's being set up by the hut?
Yes, I was. I was thinking that. I was like, oh man, is this gonna be one of those things where like the Rancor tries to attack him because the huts are just like, oh yeah, no, here's a gift, but it's just like a Trojan horse.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's kind of. I was thinking that, and I was actually shocked that it wasn't the case. That
I know.
The eyes go blurry. You get you see from the Rancor's perspective, and then you get some of these like cute sounds that I guess it makes. It's so funny how the show is like, hey, we're gonna make you like the Tuscans. We're gonna make you like the Rancors. Where like, listen, if there's anything you thought was gross and weird and evil, turns out you're wrong.
Turns out it was just mistreated and misunderstood.
You're just misunderstood, right? You just got it from the wrong perspective.
You want to? Okay, you know what's funny? What I kind of got from this whole scene of when he's like petting it behind its like little weird little.
Is that your
head.
spot?
Yeah. It's like the you know when people always post the videos of and it's like, oh, here's the dad with the dog he didn't want, and the dad always just loves the dog so much and it's like his best friend, but at the first he's just like, oh, I don't want this stupid dog. But it's just like the thing, not that he didn't want it to begin with, but it's just like that's what the feeling I got from Boba Fett was like, all those videos of dads who just like love their dogs so much.
Yes, I mean, well, he's obviously like he has a thing for creatures. Boba does, and he says that that these. Despite the fact that they're known for fighting, they're actually quite loving and can form strong bonds with their owners. And then they mention the Witches of Dathomir.
Yes.
Which is weird to see.
That's where Rancors are from.
Weird to hear Danny Trejo even mention the Witches of Dathomir. It's it's kind of like, wow, what a weird world we live in, where Danny Trejo is talking about Dathomir.
Yeah.
But I'm into it,
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's Rancor's home planets too.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yes.
Panda Express, by the way, in the chat says you were talking about Fly Away Home and the little girl's Anna Paquin.
See? There you go.
All right, listen.
I'm not the only person.
I wasn't saying you were wrong. I just didn't know what the hell you were talking about. So after that, Danny Trejo mentions this, Boba says, I want to learn to ride it.
Love it.
And he says he's ridden beasts 10 times this size, which I think is a nod to his first appearance in the holiday special.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's riding that massive, like
just
water
a dinosaur.
Creature. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Amazing.
Yeah. And he says it'll take tremendous discipline. And then I just thought about the Mandalorian trying to ride one of those mouth with 2 legs where he's learning to ride that thing. Remember that?
Oh, the blurg.
The blurgs.
Yes.
So I imagine that'll be like, we'll get one of those scenes.
I'm pumped. I want to see Boba rampaging through the streets with riding a Rancor, I'm
with
into
full on armor with his I just give him a cape again. I feel like that's the one thing that's missing.
Give the Rancor a cape.
Give him a cape too. Give everyone a cape. Everyone should get a cape.
Yeah,
you get a cape and you get a cape. So the trainer then imprints the calf on Boba by removing the blinders, and it's really quite a tender moment. It comes up, rubs his side of his face.
Mm-hmm.
And then he leaves, and then I love how the Danny Trejo's like, "Don't worry, He'll be back.
Yeah. But hey, you want to
Yeah.
know what I think they were kind of nodding to is, you know, how
Right.
when Luke kills the Rancor and then the Rancor trainer's like super sad and crying about it?
Yes, totally.
See? Because they
Yes.
bond with their like trainers and
Right.
owners.
And in this case, that was who he was bonded with.
Yeah.
That sad man in Return of the Jedi.
They've always had people they bonded with.
Right. This is not new. This is
No, it's not new.
They're just extrapolating on that one scene of that man crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So BD-8 arrives to tell them that the mayor is apparently unavailable for the next 20 days, which is really funny. I love how he's like, oh, yeah, I wish I could see you, but my schedule.
Yeah.
And so they go, by the way, but when he interrupts, he's like, come back, I'm busy.
Yeah.
Like, he's just like petting him on the side. Very good. So they arrive in Mos Espa, and Boba and Fennec arrive at the mayor's office with their new gang, right? He's just acquiring new. He got the Gamorreans first. He kind of recruited them. Then I guess Fennec first saved her life. Then the Gamorreans. Then now this new band of youths.
Yeah.
And the major domo tries to. I like, by the way, they played Boba's theme here as he kind of comes in the door. I thought that was good. That was kind of a good musical moment.
Yeah.
And then the major domo tries to stall them again, but Fennec threatens his life.
Again.
But just like, listen, we'll just get to the chase here. Let me show you my blaster, and let's just get this over with. So this seems to work at first, but then he heads into the back office and locks the door. I love, by the way, he locks the door, and then they're like, did you just lock the door? And then they go to unlock it. Fennec, super cool. He like just unlocks it super fast, like rips it open. And then if you look in the background, like that, like the guy who was like, are you on the schedule or whatever? Before? No one's concerned. Everyone's just like, everyone's just going about their business. It's like no issue. So they chase him. And turns out that he's trying to get away on a speeder. So Boba's new gang follows on their little speeder bikes. And we get this speeder bike chase, and it couldn't be more underwhelming of a speeder bike chase.
Can we talk about how much I hate this now?
It's so lame. I
hate those speeder bikes. I think they look so stupid. They look like greaser cars from Greece.
They do. I think that's important. I think that's what they're going for, by the way.
And even the chase is like that typical.
It's so slow.
It's such a slow chase. It's like, again, like the whole thing from Greece where it's like, oh, they've got these spikes that come out and stab your car. It's like, I hated it. Even like whatever his name is, the Twi'lek there. His car looks like some kind of fancy BMW.
I liked his speeder.
It looked like a Bentley, speeder. And it made me mad. I didn't like it. I don't know. And I don't like to hate on Star Wars. We know this. I usually like to find the good things in it. I don't know. I couldn't get past how dumb those bikes looked. I'm like, especially if they're just like a ragtag group of half droid humans, like give them some junker cool bikes. Don't give them these really weird fancy nice. I don't know.
So I feel like I know what they're going for here. I think they're going for this like cyberpunk kind of aesthetic. I feel like this would work way better if we weren't in Mos Espa. Like if we were based on any planet that was a lot of people built up.
Yeah, maybe like Coruscant would make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, because think about because I know a lot of people on Twitter are like, because I know a lot of people are upset about these bikes. So there's a lot of people like posting like, well, what about all these dumb speeders that are in Star Wars? And they do look. There's a lot of dumb looking speeders.
I'm sure there are a lot of dumb looking speeders,
but like on Coruscant, there's a bazillion of them, and these I feel like no one would bat an eye if these were on Coruscant.
Yeah,
or maybe they wouldn't make a big deal.
Maybe because
they feel out of place.
They do.
In Tatooine.
That's the thing. If it was somewhere fancier, it would make more sense to me, I guess. And maybe that's what it is. Because again, they also like remind me of like mopeds. Like that people, because you know how mopeds always come in like crazy different like colors or Vespas.
Yes.
Sorry, Vespas.
They totally look like a Vespa. Everyone said like these little Vespas.
Yeah, but it would make way more sense if it's, you're right, like somewhere fancier like Naboo or Coruscant or somewhere that's kind of got more like hoity-toity.
Exactly.
Whatever,
and then even the clothes that they're wearing, it feels like even more like it would fit in anywhere else. Like why are they wearing these weird clothes when everyone else is wearing like rags and stuff, but they also don't have jobs? It doesn't make sense. So like I have nothing against like the performances. Like Sophie Thatcher plays Drash. She's like the one with the 80s hair.
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't. It's not about the performances of the actors or anything.
It just feels odd. So again, I kind of totally understand where they're coming from, and I know people have tried to argue. Even I saw that the speeder chase itself is kind of like this callback to like a different era of filmmaking where things were, a little bit more stylized. Maybe,
yeah.
you didn't have the same way to film a high speed car chase like you do now. So
right.
you kind of got away with like doing more things like knocking things over and driving. Like obviously,
the hut painting.
Like, the hut painting is super good. By the way, that hut painting is also Ralph Mcquarrie concept art.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that's a kind of cool little nod. And like, so driving through that, like, that's like, having a pane of glass and people. Like,
it's like the classic slapstick sort of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like, and like, there's some fun nods here. Like I did like the astromech droid that gets knocked over, the protocol droid that like spins around.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I liked even at the end, the very end of this chase when he crashes into the fruit stand.
Yeah.
All the ones tumbling on top of him are Meilurans.
Yes.
And those are from Rebels, and like so it's like, oh, okay, that was cool. It's like, oh, those are Meilurans. I like that's kind of cool.
I recognize those spiky melons.
Yeah, it's like, oh, those are from Rebels. Like those are Hera's favorite fruit. So
yes, because I love how like in that show, people would always end up crashing into those things.
Yeah,
so it just feels like that feels natural. I thought that's fine.
Yeah.
There's some there's some cool moments here, but it's mostly I just feel like it's too slow and really like weirdly staged and kind of boring. So you've got this like this shot where they spin around one of those taxi droids.
Yeah.
That Anakin and Padme use when they go visit Tatooine again in episode 2.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's one of those, and there's like there's little cool nods here, and that's fun. And like knocking over that like water tower, that like slide underneath is kind of cool, and like the way that they like rode these bikes off the walls and stuff. I thought that was like interesting. We haven't really seen that before. But I just didn't think it didn't look very good. Like I don't think the effects were like top notch here. And I'm mostly fine with that. Like I don't need it to be like film level quality effects all the time.
But,
I just think that it could have been shot in a much more like exciting, way that and this just did nothing for me. It's just so slow.
I just would have liked, just like I said, just some different choices and kind of I think different costuming choices would have made a lot more sense. Like you said, a little bit raggedier looking, not
right.
So...
Like why? Like it's all fine. I'm fine with the idea of like picking up these kind of like street urchin type kids and then
me too, but...
bringing them in under your wing and all that kind of like sure.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
just like they're just a little odd. And then by the way, we finally get to see their like special droid parts in action.
Yeah.
One has like a piston leg. One has like a cutter, like a plasma cutter on his arm. The other guy obviously has the eye thing, which they make a joke about later. But,
yes, yeah.
Did we see what's her name's like main? Like,
I don't think we did.
So
yeah,
it's still coming. Mm-hmm. What is her name again? I just said it. I know.
Drash.
Drash. DRASH. And by the way, a couple things here. I'm really looking at the IMDb. Danny Trejo just called the Rancor Keeper, no name.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says here that young Boba Fett is played by Daniel Logan. So maybe this is unused footage from...
could be. Yeah.
So, anywho, that's the speeder chase. Any other thoughts on the speeder chase?
No, I kind of got them all. Out.
Yeah. Anyway, so the Major Domo then reveals, he's like, oh, you caught me. So... he's working with the Pikes. He reveals that the mayor's working with the Pikes.
Mm-hmm.
We get this, I thought, and then you talked about, you go from like, I think, kind of shoddy effects to really cool looking effects. So you've got this Starliner landing on Tatooine. It's like really cool. You get this like overhead shot. Very cool, right? And then a bunch of Pikes get off. In fact, you even get like this shot of like it landed, and it kind of looks like a really long extended piece of the Millennium Falcon. It's almost like if you multiplied the Millennium Falcon's entrance a bunch of times, in Photoshop, that you would get this kind of Starliner look, and it looks really cool and looks really good. And then you have a bunch of Pikes come off.
Mm-hmm.
I got the impression from the concept art that they're supposed to look more like warrior like.
Oh, okay.
You don't really get that sense, I don't think, in live action. So you see one of these new gang members. He's there, the one with the eye. He goes and reports back to Boba, and he says, I saw at least a dozen of them. There's a bad joke about his eye. And then Fennec believes that they're going to war, and Boba vows that they'll be ready.
Right.
So that's the episode. I did like, by the way, I like this idea that these Pikes aren't coming on their own ships. They're coming via these Starliners, kind of like public transportation. They're coming under the radar, I think, is the idea.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So it's not so much
cool.
of like a Pike presence, right? It's
I like because I think it could have been really cool if you had like a Pike ship land, and then you have these like soldiers come out in formation, and you have like that would be, I think, it would be more clear in terms of what's going on. They have to kind of explain a lot of stuff.
Yes,
By the way, speaking of explaining stuff, at that scene in the Sand People's, the Tuscans, like burned out camp.
Yep.
There's a flashback inside a flashback to the scene of them like spray painting the wall.
Yes.
And I'm like, guys, I think we understood what's going on here. You didn't like
with the symbol.
give the audience some credit that we know what the hell is going on here. Like, it's not that complicated. You don't need to show us this again. Like, I thought that was like really odd.
I would have preferred a flashback about that stick he burned as opposed to
right. Like, explain the thing that doesn't make sense. Instead, you're like, oh, what this super obvious thing, this symbol we've only seen once before, last episode basically, and you're gonna tell me that we need to explain. I thought that was like, I was a little upset there. I was like, really, we need to do that, Robert Rodriguez? Like,
that's fair.
So here's the thing, overall thoughts. I didn't like this episode.
Yeah.
Overall, I thought it was poor. I thought it was worse than the first episode, despite some cool moments.
Yeah,
it's
I would
shorter
agree.
than it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is both the first and this third episode are directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like, maybe I'm just not vibing with his style, but this now goes back to his episode of The Mandalorian that I didn't like.
Which one was? Oh, that was the ice.
The introduction
one.
of the one. Well, no. The one with Boba Fett being introduced was his.
Oh, that was his. Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And that's where you got like chubby Boba, like memes and stuff like that from that episode, right? And it's before he went and got back in shape. But like,
felt bad for him. Everybody was calling him Boba Fett.
It's fine, but like, I didn't like the way that episode was directed, and I don't like the way that these last two episodes are directed. And I like the last major film that I saw from Robert Rodriguez was Alita: Battle Angel, and I actually really liked that movie. I liked
that movie. I have seen that movie, and I like that one.
But
yeah,
I can see some of that style here. And by the way, he's also the Spy Kids director.
Oh,
he did that with his kids.
Okay. Interesting.
I saw someone say there's a little bit too much Spy Kids in this episode.
Which is actually, that's really funny.
It's pretty funny.
So
I thought that was like, ooh,
true.
That's such a good like dig,
Yeah.
And so I don't know what's going on because I like his movies generally speaking, but I just feel like this is really, I'm not vibing with his Star Wars vision, maybe.
Right. And I don't know how much maybe you can explain this to me and anybody else out there who isn't as familiar with film and directors. Like, how much control does a director have?
Ultimate control, essentially.
Okay, so like, does he have control over how things look, like how the characters are dressed, or how like that kind of stuff, or no? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in a scenario where like Star Wars or Marvel, it's a little bit different, where it's a little bit more producer driven, and because you're working in an existing world, that a lot of that decision making is outside of your control.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of like Dave Filoni writing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like. So that's the thing. And obviously a lot of that stuff is concepted early on, but as a director, generally speaking, the final say goes to the director. At least in film, that's the case.
Okay.
And then that's why you talk about like things like studio meddling, because a director will have a vision, they're making a movie a specific way, and then the studio is coming in and they're changing things that he didn't make a decision on.
Right. Yes.
Right. Or he or she didn't make a decision on. So in this case, because again, it's a television show, TV directing is a little bit different, where you're kind of just more of a hired gun, like, hey, here's the script, you're going to shoot it. They have they often in TV traditionally, you have limited time and budget, so you can't really go off script. So you have to of course, you have to get hit a certain amount of scenes a day. You got, like you're like, okay, we're doing this, and this, and you can influence thing on at the time, like you can get on set and be like, no, actually, let's put the camera here, or I want to take this like this or whatever.
Of course,
that's a lot of control that they have. But traditionally, they do have a lot of control, and because this is like, I think he is a producer on this show. I'm pretty sure he has a lot of control over this kind of stuff, in conjunction, or at least he's working with the story group, and he's working with Jon Favreau, and they're working collaboratively to come up with these takes.
Yeah.
And it does feel like maybe this episode was stitched like the first episode was maybe supposed to be longer, and it was like this elements of the second episode and elements of this like maybe reorganized in some way.
Could be,
in a different way, and you can kind of like move things around, because like there's not a lot of flashback in this, but there's a lot of flashback in other ones. You could maybe spread that out differently, whatever. But there is some disjointed feeling to it all, especially when you go from a 39-minute episode to a 50-minute episode to a 39-minute episode again. It's odd.
Yeah, it was odd. I totally agree. I did. And yeah, like you said, I like the second episode a lot better.
It's so much better. It just it tonally is much stronger. The dialogue's better.
Yeah.
The like literally everything I feel like in the second episode is like leaps and bounds better than the first and third episodes combined. And it's just, again, I don't want to throw Robert Rodriguez under the bus here. I'm not saying it's necessarily his fault, but I am saying I didn't like the last 3 episodes of Star Wars that he's directed. So
yeah.
So take what you will from that,
Yeah, he's coming for you now.
Any other final thoughts for yourself?
I'm just trying to think. I think we kind of went over everything that I kind of had in my brain there.
What do you hope happens with these biker people? What do you think? What do you think happens with them? This gang of youths.
Okay, if I want to be optimistic, I would say I hope that if we have to see a lot more of them, that we get a little bit more, like, I guess, character development to make them a little bit more interesting, a little bit more intriguing.
I swear to God, they have like 3 lines of dialogue in this whole...
There's not much. And that's maybe part of why it was really hard to kind of relate to them at all, because it was just like, okay, they didn't really do anything for me.
Why are we supposed to care about these people?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if we have to keep continuing seeing them, then I would just, hopefully they can give them some more character development and do something with them that makes them a little bit more interesting and a little less... I don't know. I found them very hokey and kind of campy, and I didn't...
It is campy. And again, the other thing, I don't want to harp on this because...
No.
I have faith that the show is going to probably make this stuff work in some way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think ultimately, it just comes down to... even before, like, there's some hokey shit in Star Wars. Like dating back to the first movies, the prequels is Jar Jar comes to mind, obviously, right? You got like that, lots of that. It's like it's part of the heritage. I think one of the things that I find confusing to me sometimes with Star Wars in the modern day, when it's being now made by the fans who grew up on it, right? That's the era we're in with Star Wars and Star Trek and a lot of the franchises that we like, but. I get the sense, and I could be totally wrong. This is completely my opinion, and I'm not based in fact at all. But I get the impression that they feel like they need to include hokey shit when they don't need to.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I don't mind that kind of stuff when it's
like a fun gag.
Boba Fett being kind of goofy, like showing the Tuscans how to ride the speeder. That I don't mind. I like that. Yeah, to me, I'm like, that's Star Wars. Yeah. But when it gets to I don't know, like you said, this weird kind of cyberpunk 80s, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, the 80s thing too is funny too, because like, someone was like, oh, well, the original movies were set in the 70s, and we've been doing the 70s aesthetic. Not set in the 70s, but it was made in the 70s.
Fair.
So it's got this 70s aesthetic, people's haircuts and stuff. So, like, this is just a natural evolution. Like, now we're on to the early 80s haircuts. But I'm like, that doesn't... Like, we don't need to follow that. That logic doesn't need to apply to Star Wars. It can look however you want it to look.
I don't think you need to take Star Wars alt-fashion and make it, like, just throwback 80s fashion from our world. Like, I think you can do way cooler stuff.
Because that's what it looks... Because that is what it looks like, right?
Yes. And I think you can do way cooler things. Like, I didn't mind, the... not the Raiders, but the motorcycle gang guys actually looking like bikers. I thought they looked cool. I was like, okay, I like that. Yep. I was like, those costuming didn't bug me. I'm like, I thought that made sense.
I think it's just because it's in Tatooine. I think that's the biggest problem. No, because actually, I liked the guy who has a long coat and the funky eye. I thought he looked kind of cool.
No, for sure.
It's like,
but you're right. It would make more sense.
That you're just he's riding this little Vespa, and it's like, okay, this is odd. I don't know.
Yeah, you're totally right that if it were Coruscant, I probably wouldn't be as like.
You wouldn't even be. I don't think you'd care.
Yeah,
you just like.
I think
you're
right.
Looks like they just look like they're selling death sticks in the.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Like that's all. But it's like,
oh, you're totally right.
Why are we on? Why do we need to do this on Tatooine? Like, let's just say that we haven't seen Coruscant since the prequels. We didn't revisit it at all in the sequel trilogy. We haven't seen it at all in any of the shows so far. We haven't even revisited it in the animated shows. And what we know from the books and all that kind of stuff is what's going on Coruscant's really interesting. There's like, it's basically a civil war there.
Yeah.
There's these kind of these imperial holdouts in certain parts of the city. It's a mess, but that's interesting at least. So it's like, you're going to show us this stuff that would have fit in really cool in Coruscant, but we're not going to ever go to Coruscant. It's weird. It's just weird.
Yeah. So, to answer your question, what I'm hoping for is, like I said, I want to see Boba Fett riding through the streets on a Rancor. So that's what I'm hoping for. And I would really like to see more Chrysanthemum. But I said that last time.
He may be back. I think so. I think
he
might come back for the end or not, or either way. That was his whole thing. He got his fight in, and we'll see him again some other show or something else.
Yeah,
I think that's
true.
fine. I think that Robert Rodriguez lied to us about what was in the trailer. He's like, it's only the stuff from the first half of the first episode. Or maybe that's what he thought. This is why I think it's been recut. Because that's not been true. There's a whole bunch of stuff from the trailer that hasn't happened yet. There's a meeting with the other heads of the crime families that we haven't seen yet. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They're now preparing for war with the Pikes. What does that look like? Because he doesn't really have the resources to take on the Pikes.
And I'm like, how are you? Unless, my only thing is, okay, is he going to band together all these districts? Like, is he going to band together the himself and the Trandoshans and the Alkalish and everybody else? Like, that's kind of the only way he's going to be able to fight the Pikes. Like,
what's the line from the trailer? He's like, why fight amongst ourselves when we can work together and make all of ourselves rich?
Well, yeah,
I think is the line. It's like, so.
And what is that that Twi'lek say to him too about the family?
Right,
like how to build your family, but
no, I thought that's the mayor. I thought that.
Or this is the mayor. Yeah, sorry, something about
being running a family is a lot more difficult than being a bounty hunter. Along those lines.
Right. Yeah. So I'm like, maybe he's going to have to kind of unite some of these other crime families because the Hutts aren't going to help. They pieced out already.
Well, exactly. So the Hutts are gone. So you need the help of the the people they talked about at the beginning, right?
But it's like you can't just take these kids and 2 Gamorreans and fight the Pikes. So there's got to be something.
Yeah. So they have a plan. That's going to be the plan. But so I think the only way you win a fight against the Pikes is a war and attrition. You just make it not worth their time.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
So it's possible, and then he has his little own fiefdom in Mos Eisley, and then that's how I just feel like here's another problem I have with the show. Okay, just generally speaking, if the stakes are, we're really interested to see how Boba Fett's gonna take over Mos Eisley. And the end goal is, hey, he's gonna succeed in his goal, and he's gonna be in charge of Mos Eisley.
Right.
Basically. Is that cool? Like, is that something we're rooting for? Like,
yeah,
I want something.
True.
I want him to be more engaged in galactic politics, maybe. But just it feels small.
Yeah, that's so true.
In some ways.
Yeah, Tatooine does feel like it's like there's only 2 places there. So.
Right. Like even if he does end up that, and he's like, okay, look, I'm the new Jabba. He's got all the power that Jabba had. Yada yada yada. This time he rules with respect.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess that's how it ends.
Yeah.
I don't so. I don't know. I am worried. There's I think only 3 episodes left. There's not a lot of time for a big shift. So that's probably how it's going to end. But then I feel like it's probably going to tie into some larger something or other.
You never know. Maybe we'll see other things. Maybe he fails and maybe he has to go do something else, like help Mandalore. So,
Right. Or like what if so he gets booted out by the Pikes.
You never know. Like maybe it's like, all right, well, fuck Tatooine. What else are we gonna do? And you never know.
Who's Khaleesi play? I know that everyone's like upset that she didn't appear
Kira?
in this episode. Kira. They're like, oh, we're gonna see Kira. So like, here's the thing. I'm thinking about like the timeline of things, and it's kind of murky. So if everyone's like, oh well, they're in charge, the syndicate, whatever. If she's still in charge of it, like she was at the end of Solo. We're talking like 40 years ago.
Yeah, I'm like that was like way long ago.
It was so long. Okay. maybe not 40, but pretty close. Like 30, we'll call it 30 years, maybe 25.
I
like
mean,
even at the small end, and let's assume that she is still in charge. Like, is this kind of something that she would get involved in? There's been some pushback. I saw on the Star Wars YouTubers, or one of the one I like, Eckhart's Ladder, talked about how he's like, I feel like Marvel has ruined like people's ability to watch stuff because they're all expecting some like tie into like this bigger bad, this big thing.
Yeah,
it's like that's not coming necessarily, and like just because Kira doesn't arrive on this ship at the end, as cool as that might have been, doesn't mean it's not. Doesn't mean it's bullshit. Like just because it's not the thing you want or expect, doesn't take it for what it is. And I've tried to tell all this people all the time. Judge it on its own merits.
Yeah,
I think we've done that. I think it's not great still. But it's not great because not great because Kira didn't show up.
No,
so.
like it's no. I wouldn't. I don't even know why people are bringing her into this.
I'd rather see a sequel, a solo sequel series with Kira and and what's his name?
Absolutely, and Maul.
Young Maul or young Maul, I guess. Older Maul.
Yeah,
it's unclear. It's not 25 years, I guess. Then it's got to be like 20 years.
It's got to be a little bit closer than that. But still, it's like at this point in time, like Maul's dead, and like it's
that's what I mean. Like, so Maul's dead, so is she in charge now, or did she, but also again, what's his name? Alden Ehrenreich, the guy who played young Han Solo.
Yeah,
he was great. Like, let's bring him back. Let's bring Childish Gambino back as
Donald.
Yeah, like let's Donald Glover. Yeah, let's have them come back and like for a repeat of let's do it good this time. I like Solo enough. It's fine.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But people have been calling for a sequel to that. I don't think we're going to see a sequel movie, but a series. I could see a series. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
I mean, they set it up for one, so
yeah, they did imply that there's more things coming, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah, that's true.
So, anywho, that's season 1, chapter 3, The Streets of Mos Espa. We'll be back next week with plenty more Book of Boba Fett. We will be doing the Tobys sooner than later. Turns out COVID is so crazy that the people we need to actually make it can't because they have to work so much because everyone's sick.
Yeah.
So that's the scenario we're in. But that will be coming soon. That'll be on the main feed. If you're not already subscribed to the Tower Babble podcast feed, do so you can get that sometime in the next week or so. Anyway, we'll be back, like I said, in a week. Until then, may the Force be with you.